Get Out has been one of the most highly praised films of 2017, and is being considered by some to be a revolutionary film in the horror genre, and has even gone as far as to be nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Now, from the title of this video, and from people who have seen my previous content, you already know that I do not agree with these assessments of the film. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I'm here to make the argument that Get Out is a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. In my opinion, it's a decent movie that's just being blown way out of proportion. And I know that Get Out fanatics are probably watching this and already hitting that dislike button like, oh, fuck this guy. Oh, this guy's a piece of shit. Fuck him. Look, please don't do that. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Please give me a chance and hear me out. I've worked very hard to organize all of my thoughts and create a very reasonable argument for my case, so please watch this entire video. And I know that you're not going to agree with all of it. You're probably going to disagree with most of it, but there's some stuff in this video that you might find yourself siding with, and at least find yourself agreeing with, maybe. To be quite honest, I've actually been itching to make this video for a long time, but there is just always the voice in my head. It's just like, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Let people have their opinions. Let people enjoy things. Stop being a cynical douchebag. But after giving this some long and awful thought, I just said, screw it. I'm just going to go ahead and make the video. For I guess 3 reasons. The first one just being the fact that I got nominated for 4 Academy Awards, 4 major awards that I feel like far superior films deserve to be at. Films like The Florida Project, A Ghost Story, The Disaster Artist, Baby Driver, Good Time, Blade Runner 2049. Films like these, I feel like, were much more deserving of these Oscar nominations. And I just feel like the neoliberal Academy just already had their minds decided about which nominations they were going to give Get Out. But I have a whole video where I talk about the Oscar nominations and why I'm upset at them. If you want to hear more on that, just go and check that video out on my channel. You'll probably enjoy it. But yeah, you could say that the Oscar nominations were kind of the official boiling point for me, to where I just said, okay, I'm making the video now, whatever. But the second reason why I'm decided to make this video has to do with the fact that I just never really witnessed a film where an opposing opinion can be met with such irrational vitriol. And I'm not really saying that, to be a victim. I'm just saying it just because it's true. Like, I've never seen a movie and have been called a racist just because I just didn't like it that much, and that's obviously irrational and stupid. Or my entire opinion will just get rejected and diluted to, oh, well, you didn't like the movie because you simply just couldn't relate to it. And, that's also pretty dumb and misinformed, because if you knew anything about me, you would know that I'm a multiracial, outspoken atheist in the heart of America's Bible Belt. So if the substance of your argument is that I can't relate to being a minority and being overpowered by the majority, I'm sorry, but you're just sadly mistaken. So what I'm getting at is that I also wanted to make this video just to give full analytical disclosure as to why I believe that Get Out is overappreciated. Again, keyword overappreciated, not bad. But let me just move on to my third and final reason. I also want to make this video just because I feel like there's a lack of YouTube critics, or just critics in general, who are being, critically honest about this film. And, so what I'm getting at is that I want to make this video for people out there who also may feel the same way, and, are looking for somebody who can kind of confirm their suspicion or confirm their criticism. But not just that, I also want to make the video for people, again, who haven't seen it this way, who also haven't really heard this opinion put out in the way that I'm about to put it out for you. It's really for everybody. It's just for people who really like the film, and I want them to hear a more honest and critical opinion of it. And it's also for people who just haven't heard it, because there's a huge lack of critics who I believe aren't really honestly criticizing the film. All right, so let me stop blabbering. I've probably given a much longer introduction than this film probably deserves. But I'm actually going to start out by pointing out the things that I actually liked about Get Out. Because, again, I don't hate this movie, and I don't want anybody leaving this video thinking that I just set out to trash this movie, because that's not what I'm doing. That's just nonsense. So there's a few things that I did like about this film. The first noticeable thing that just comes to my mind is the sunken place. I thought the sunken place was brought to life in a very immersive way. And I also like it because it's visually stunning, but on top of that, I feel like people can extrapolate different kinds of substantive meanings to what Jordan Peele is going for with that. It's the fact that I feel that people can ponder about its meaning and come up with maybe similar meanings, but not exactly the same. I think is pretty artistically sound. To me, it was one of the most impressive aspects of the film, and it's probably the best thing the film had to offer in terms of artistic conveyance of theme. I also really enjoyed the concept of a camera flash and how it can like bring the subconscious back to life again. I thought that was one of the more creative touches of the film. And the third act, you know, in general, I thought was pretty entertaining. I thought it exceeded on its entertainment level. You know, I have some issues with it and that I'll definitely get into later. I also really like the concept of our main character, Chris, you know, shoving the cotton in his ear to block out the hypnosis. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, like I said, it's a decent movie. It's got some good stuff sprinkled throughout it. But just as a whole, I just think this movie is just being vastly overappreciated. And to me, it's overrated. And here's my first reason why that is. The movie is extremely predictable from start to finish. And honestly, I don't think anybody who actually really enjoys this movie could argue that it isn't. It is incredibly obvious where the film is going to head. And when the revelation finally comes in the third act, it's pretty unsatisfying because it goes where you obviously knew where it was heading. I mean, the very beginning scene of the movie shows one of the film's reoccurring characters get kidnapped in an upscale neighborhood. And, you know, I think that scene was directed fine, but I just don't think it works well narratively. The scene goes out of its way to spoon feed you unnecessary information that you come to know later, which ultimately makes the film more predictable than it already was. I mean, this character that we see in the first scene comes back later and we see him in the film about, I believe, somewhere around 30 minutes in. And that's when we see him, you know, talking very proper, you know, very white, as they say. So, I mean, at that point, you know, we can already conclude that there's white people in the middle of nowhere that's kidnapping black people and doing some sort of brainwashing altering technique that's making them at least talk white and be white in some way. And then to add insult to injury, this film keeps cross-cutting back to this TSA character who just keeps reinforcing and spoon-feeding more narrative information. And, you know, I get why he's there. You know, he's obviously there to kind of be, well, he's there to be the saving grace of the film, but he's also there as, like, comic relief. But I didn't really find the comedy to be, I didn't find his character to be that funny. I mean, it's really not. I mean, all of his comedy just relies on him being, oh, he's this outrageous black guy. Isn't it funny that he's being outrageous and he's saying outrageous black things that black people would say? I mean, not really. I mean, I didn't find it all that funny, and I actually found it more annoying. I wish the film would get back on track and be less predictable, but every time I went back to him, you just see him start spoon-feeding and reinforcing information and just doing this outrageous black guy comedy act. I'm just saying that all the comedy surrounding that character was based on just the stereotypical outrageous black guy just yelling crazy things, and it didn't really rely on the actual clever, like, comedic hilarity of it. And it just got tiring for me kind of fast. And on top of that, the scene where the TSA character goes and attempts to explain his theory to the cops at the police station, because you see the punchline coming from a mile away. You know that the TSA character is gonna go in there, is gonna go and explain some crazy wild theory that just doesn't sound believable, and they're all just gonna stare at him and just bust out laughing. Like, I honestly saw that punchline coming the second the scene started. And that just sucks, you know. Again, it's this kind of just comes, this is on the same subject of it being predictable. Even the comedy was predictable, which is really unfortunate to me. I don't know, I just personally found that scene to be comedically shallow and a little lazy. In regards to this film's predictability, the film hits a certain point where we see a compilation of white individuals and couples at the parents' party, and we see them, you know, passive-aggressively saying implicitly racist things, and, you know, doing weird things like touching up on their body and making, you know, very racist assumptions about their physicality, their athleticism, their sexual performance even. He even runs into a guy who's saying that, you know, black is in fashion. And it even cuts back to that later in the third act, which is, again, kind of more spoon-feeding. But, you know, at this point of the film, like, if you're just clueless as to what's happening, like, I don't even know what to say to you. Like, the film at this point has just made it very, very obvious what is happening. You know for a fact at this point in the film, one can easily extrapolate that these white people in this town are using these black men for their own benefit. Again, you don't really know how. I'll give you that. You don't necessarily know exactly what's happening, like specifically like how they're doing it, but you know that these white people are behind it. You know that the white people are the villains of the movie. You know that they are taking advantage of these black people who are obviously missing, who we have seen reoccurring in the film. And again, this takes away a lot of this film's suspense for me because we already know who the bad guys are about like 20 minutes into the film. And all it does after that point is just keep reinforcing what you already knew. But in the third act, when it gets revealed how they're actually doing it, I was just there and my response was just like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But that's it. That's kind of where it stayed. I'll give it props. It's really entertaining and it led for a pretty entertaining third act. And it was kind of pretty cool to watch. It's kind of interesting and it's brutally fascinating, but I just don't think it's narratively unpredictable, suspenseful, or shocking in any way. Moving on from this film's predictability, I want to point out a few plot conveniences that just kind of bothered me and stuck with me. The first one isn't that major, it's minor, but I still thought it was noticeable. And it has to do with the auction and bingo of Chris's character. I found it a little odd that these sneaky, evil, upscale white people just would blatantly auction off somebody in the open. I mean, Chris is still there. I mean, I believe at this point of the film, Chris is like down by the lake, still on the property talking to Rose while this auction is happening. And on top of that, there's a giant framed picture of Chris right there while they're doing the bingo of it. And I know this might get a little nitpicky, but I just feel it's, again, just really odd that you would have a giant framed picture of the person that you're auctioning, because what you're doing is, first of all, it's illegal. And secondly, everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but most people in the party have already become acquainted with him. They already know what he looks like. I mean, they felt him. They did a lot of shit already with Chris. They already have become acquainted with him. So what's the point of really putting a giant picture frame of him up there? I don't know. I feel like it was just for visual appeal, but again, it's more of a nitpick. Maybe there was people there on the auction that didn't get to meet him yet, didn't get to see him, so they wanted a visual reference. Jesus Christ. So I'm willing to not really linger on that, and I'll just throw that to the side for now. But the second issue that I kind of had that kind of baffles me, that really nobody has brought up or really talked about or attempted to challenge in any way, is Chris's horrible and stupid survival skills when the third act begins. Not when we're in the thick of the third act, but essentially how the third act gets initiated is because of Chris's horrible, dumb decisions. So at this point of the film, Chris stumbles on a box of photos that shows his girlfriend Rose posing as a girlfriend for a lot of different people, including some people that he recognized already, including Georgina. So at this point, Chris should easily conclude that Rose is not there to protect his well-being and that she's been involved in these kidnappings since day one. So Chris ends up getting interrupted by Rose, and he's able to observe her reluctant and suspicious behavior when he asks her for the car keys, because he's taking forever to find them and he can't find them, and he notes it. He's like, oh, you can't find them car keys, Rose? And it shows that, he knows that, there's no excuse. Chris at this point should know for a fact that Rose is not on his side. So I think any rational person at this point would have at least confirmed that the keys were there and at least in his possession before trying to make some sort of escape in the middle of nowhere. And he doesn't do that. He just instead just keeps walking off and puts himself into a corner trap as soon as he gets downstairs. And, the reason why this really bothers me is because Chris has never really shown to be a dumb character or somebody who doesn't have proper deductive reasoning or somebody who would lack, basic survival skills. Throughout the film, it shows us that he's a very alert person. He pays attention to detail. You can tell that he's been suspicious from the second that he got there. And it just doesn't make sense that he would make such an irrational decision like that. There is one excusable thing that I can maybe sympathize with. And the excuse for that is, oh no, because Chris was in an irrational state of panic. He wasn't thinking properly, and he had a whole bunch of adrenaline just pumping through his system, and the only thing that was on his mind at that moment was to, say it with me, get out. I could maybe buy that argument if you could argue it well enough, but just to me, there is absolutely no excuse why you shouldn't know that Rose isn't on your side. I mean, even when he gets cornered downstairs, he keeps asking her over again. Rose, where are the keys? Rose, I need them keys. I'll be better if I find them keys. I'll know my purpose if I find them keys. Rose, give me the keys. I'm just like, dude, that is long gone. You should have been known that when you were upstairs. I don't know how anybody couldn't have known that already. And he should have, there's just really no way. You know that she's a lying bitch. You saw all the photos. If you know she's a lying bitch, why are you relying on a lying bitch to give you keys when you're downstairs? I just don't get it. I don't know. To me, at the end of the day, it just seems really dumb and out of character. And it just seems like a very convenient way for our main character, Chris, to get captured and then to initiate the third act. Especially considering that after he gets captured, he jumps into really smart survival mode really quick. So there's that. Okay, but those were the two plot conveniences that I thought I'd point out that seemed a little meh. And really, I felt that nobody has really brought up or talked about, so there's that. Okay, but the last thing that I really want to talk about, really my biggest issue with this film that really makes me believe that it's just overrated and overappreciated, has to do with how this film chose to convey its social and political themes. I feel like what hinders Get Out from being a truly great film is its lack of subtlety. I feel like it's extremely obvious about what this film tries to say and makes no real significant attempt to even be slightly ambiguous about it. And really what makes it more artistically upsetting is the fact that its theme revolves around a very controversial political issue that tons of Americans have huge disagreements on. And that doesn't upset me because I agree or disagree with the theme. Hypothetically, I could 100% agree with everything that was conveyed in this film, but I would still consider it to be an artistically lacking product. And the reason why that is just because I feel that Get Out assumes the audience's political affiliation throughout the entire film, and there isn't really any moment that challenges its viewpoint at all throughout the entire film. For example, there are huge differences between a film like Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ and Martin Scorsese's Silence. But the major difference between these two films is that one film blatantly assumes the audience beliefs and the other one doesn't. Passion of the Christ is actually an aesthetically impressive movie. It's got great acting, great directing, great sound design, great cinematography. It's an all-around great aesthetic piece. But what really stops The Passion of the Christ from being a good art piece is that it takes a controversial issue like religion and it assumes that the entire audience is Christian and believes that Jesus is the Son of God. Nobody but Christians believe that The Passion of the Christ is an artistically masterful piece of filmmaking. But with Silence, it exceeds much higher on the artistic level. And the reason why it exceeds on the artistic level is because it takes that same controversial topic, but the film never blatantly once assumes the audience's beliefs or biases throughout the entire runtime. The film constantly has you pondering its meanings, and it also challenges itself in its theme. Now, I don't want anybody to get this twisted. This is not saying that a film must appeal to all viewpoints and be kind of neutral in order to be great. What I'm saying is that, in my personal opinion, is that if a filmmaker is going to tackle a controversial topic, whether it's political or religious, subtlety and thematic opposition will result in a much thought-provokingly satisfying art product. And I just don't feel that Get Out achieved that, or honestly really even tried to achieve that. In the same way that I think only Christians think that The Passion of the Christ is a masterful film, only people who really have and hold these strong beliefs of far-left liberal politics are the ones that truly believe that Get Out is a masterful film. Because I know for a fact that if I were to ask all these people who truly believe that Get Out is a masterful film and deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, I feel like if I were to ask them what if Get Out used all of its artistic energy to blatantly convey a conservative social theme, they would not like the movie. I guarantee you none of them would ever suggest that it should be nominated for Best Picture. In fact, this film has a majority white cast, and not a single white character in this film is morally redeemable in any way, shape, or form. I remember when we were talking about this film in my horror class, one of my film teachers said, well, is this film really saying all white people are like this? And in my head, I'm like, I don't think so, but what do I really have to argue against that it's not? Because literally every single white person in this movie is just some twisted douchebag who is just trying to reap the benefits of black culture or their actual physical body. And the only reason why I really bring this up too is because I know for a fact that, again, all the people that really love Get Out, if the movie came out that had a majority black cast and they were all just morally irredeemable and disgusting people, you know, I would be surprised if that film even made it to a theater at that point. And this is precisely why I feel that films that unambiguously cater to one side of a controversial issue just end up being artistically lacking and unrefreshing and not very thought-provoking. I don't know, I'm just one of those people who truly believes that the way that a filmmaker goes about conveying a theme is much more important and creatively interesting than the theme itself. I don't know if everybody's gonna agree with me on that, but I just feel like that's the case on at least most occasions. Well, alright folks, that'll be a wrap on that. That's my full case just laid out for you guys there. I probably forgot to say a few things, but you know, whatever. Hopefully this has been a pretty substantial case. No, again, I don't think Get Out is a bad movie. It's a decent movie. I just think it's just way overhyped. It's been way blown out of proportion, way overappreciated. But for everybody who has stuck through this entire video that actually likes Get Out and really loves the movie, I have huge respect for you. Thank you for taking the time to hear my entire case out. That truly means a lot to me. And really thank you to all the people who actually clicked on this video and heard my entire case. I respect everybody that has done that. Thank you so much. I really hope that both sides, people who don't like it and people who really love it, can get something out of this video. I worked very hard trying to lay everything out in this video, so thank you so much for actually clicking on it and hearing what I had to say. If you really liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the Misfit Pawn channel to be updated on more film-related content.